Well, Avatar Fire and Ash, it's finally here, and I'll be honest with you, this movie is kind of disappointing. Yeah, it's not really that great. Other than the visuals, which look amazing as usual, story-wise, it's just not very good. So the story opens up with everybody mourning the loss of their son in the second movie. Neytiri is kind of praying, Jack Sully is just keeping himself busy, and the brother is just he's blaming himself for the loss. That's how the movie begins. But where the story begins is a while later when the merchant ships arrived at the reef, and then the Sully families are talking and they realize, holy shit, we cannot take care of Spider anymore because he needs the oxygen and we don't have the supply here. We need to bring him back to our previous base. So they all go there to bring him there, and then suddenly they are attacked by the fire tribe. That's where the story really starts for me. So they all split up and they're all in their own ways, in their own journeys and all that nonsense. So here's where the problem really begins for me. Some of the character actions really don't make sense, and Quaritch is the biggest perpetrator of that. Now, for a case study, Quaritch, as well as Jake Sully and his children, as well as Spider as well, are being trapped. They are caught by the Fire Tribe members. And then this lady, the leader of the Fire Tribe, tells them, teach me how to use the gun. There's no other condition. And then Quaritch just teaches it to her without any condition. Here's what he would have done. Let go of Spider and Jake Sully and the children, and then maybe I'll teach you. Or if not, he would have said let go of Spider because that's his son. But he didn't do any of that. He just taught it to her. And why? Earlier, before this scene, that lady, that Fire Tribe leader lady, did this thing with her. You know the Avatar, they have that thing at the back of their hair, like some stick that you stick into the creature and then suddenly it starts flying or it goes underwater as you command it to. Yeah, she did that to Quaritch. And then he became her servant, just like that. So, what? Bro, the only other character I know who's this down bad for a girl is probably Denji for Makima. I don't know anyone else who will be this big of a simp just that easily. And it's not just this, there's a lot of other moments where the character actions just don't add up. Bro, I swear there were a lot of moments in this movie, like 3 or 4 moments in this movie where the character could have actually shot down the enemy, but they chose to wait. Like they had a gun and they were aiming right at the enemy, like the character enemy that they wanted to shoot, the leader, and they didn't do anything. That's crazy. And then they start moving after it's too late. Bro, that's cheating right now. And it's not just that. Okay, let's face the facts, right? The movie is too long. 3 hours and 17 minutes is too long. Look, the duration is not my issue. I know for a lot of people, if a movie is over 3 hours, that's an issue. But for me, there's no such issue. I watched Killers of the Flower Moon. That was like my number 1 movie of that year. And that movie was 3.5 hours long. It was longer than this movie. And I had no such problems with the duration of it. I thought it was really good. But this movie, it doesn't justify that 3 hours and 17 minutes. Let me explain why. There's just too many different storylines going inside this movie. I think James Cameron just said, you know what, I want all the best storylines and then squeeze it into this one movie. And you see, that's the problem here. When you squeeze so many different ideas, all of them will be underdeveloped. Reason being, there's only a limited number of screen time you will have for a movie. So there's only a limited number of ideas you can develop to its best potential. He should have just taken 1 or 2 storylines and then focused in on that and then made it the best he could. But instead, he decided to bring like so many different he chose quantity over quality, basically. Just taking everything and then squeezing it into one. Next. Other than the story being overcrowded by too many things going on, there's also the issue with, I really like Sigourney Weaver as an actress. I have nothing against her, but so she plays this character called Kiri in the movie. And Kiri is supposed to be a teenage girl, if I'm not wrong. So when you see a teenage girl, she needs to sound like a teenage girl, right? And don't get me wrong, I really like Sigourney Weaver as an actress, but I'm sorry, I cannot help but whenever I listen to her voice, especially in the second half of the movie, it became so obvious that her voice was not of a teenage girl. It is so hard to hide away. And I just found that a bit annoying for me. But I got used to it after a while, so it didn't really matter. I just say, okay, forget it. It's Sigourney Weaver. She's an amazing actress. Just forget it. Just forgive it. And I just forgive it and move along. But I don't think a lot of people can forgive that and will find that very annoying until the end of the movie. Furthermore, I think a lot of character arcs are not fleshed out properly as well. So let's use a case study as an example. Neytiri and Spider. Neytiri is part of the Na'vi, Spider is a human, so Neytiri hates Spider. That was established at the beginning of the movie. And then like somewhere 2/3 or 3/4 into the movie, Neytiri suddenly loves Spider. And the reason for that is because Spider saved Sully's life. I mean, at the beginning of the movie, she said, let's kill him. And now she's like, okay, I love him. And check, Sully is the one who wants to kill him now. This transition, this flip in character motivation and their goals and how they feel about certain things doesn't make sense. Like, I feel like there's something in between in their character arcs that is missing here. Again, character actions not making sense. Like how I said, Quaritch is the main perpetrator of this. There's another moment where Quaritch and the Fire Lady actually do it in a tent. And I think you know this scene very well if you've been on social media, like Instagram, and then heard all these things where those two really did it. Yeah, they really did it. And it didn't make sense how they got there in the first place. Moreover, you know how the movie is called Fire and Ash? But there's barely any fire or ash. There are a few scenes with fire, but just a few. And the movie is called Fire and Ash. I thought there was something wrong there. Last but not least, I think we need to talk about the ending. Okay, before that, there was a war sequence that was going on, and that was just brilliantly directed. The visuals were amazing. Everything about that sequence was amazing. That scene really saved the entertaining value of the movie for me. Really made it much better for me personally. But let's talk about the sequence after that, like the ending of the movie, right? So I'll be honest with you, it felt like a game cutscene from the early 2000s. The visual effects was that bad. Here's what I predict happened. That scene was added in at the last moment, so the visual effects artists probably didn't have enough time to do the VFX of that scene. That's why it looks so bad. Like, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself right now, but I just think it's quite bad, but I don't think a lot of people are going to care about it. It's a pretty long movie and people are getting ready to leave the cinema, so they probably don't care about it. I just wanted to say that. In conclusion, I had an enjoyable time in this movie, although I would say I was still quite disappointed because I really liked the first two movies, even though a lot of people didn't like them. I personally did, and this was kind of disappointing. I just found it a bit enjoyable. That's about it. Yeah, but it's not really that bad of a film. Definitely go check it out in the bigger screen. This movie is all about visuals. I'll say it straight up. The first two movies at least had a story, even though it was very basic. This movie, on the other hand, had a very overcrowded, oversaturated story. That's kind of even worse in my opinion. So you cannot really call it a story. And if you like this video, click the like button. If you want to see more, subscribe to my channel. See you guys next time. You guys are always the best.